Try it again
But
because
there's six people. There's five people. We had six people. Now it's five people watching because they were like, "Screw that, fuck."
let me see. No, because I actually I didn't have my Wi-Fi on. That's probably what I was doing. So
All right. Every time I
um,
try and load it, it says we're have trouble loading this live video.
hold on. Let me do this real quick. Let me do this. Hold on. I'm gonna remove you, and I'm gonna.
Are we not supposed to curse on IG? Fuck that.
You can curse whatever you want to
I'm not
say. I
thinking.
have
I'm
no
just
issues with it. Just
not
don't
that
say
I'm
anything in
planning
front of
to
the.
say anything
Just don't
horrible and
say anything. Hey, Natero, peace, peace. I see y'all coming in. Baba Taro, peace, peace, peace. How y'all doing? I see y'all coming in. Bear with us. We getting all this live stuff going tonight.
all
Um,
right. You know what? I'm gonna close out of
did you say?
IG and come back into IG because it's
All
still
right. Well, that's cool.
doing the same
That's cool.
shit.
That's cool. Yeah, we tonight. Hey, Baba Taro, don't forget to holler at your boy. You know what I'm saying? We still got some things to discuss, so don't forget about me. You feel me? And the Taro, when you coming back on? You ready?
Yeah, hold on. You're about to see me in
And people are
Okay, I'm sending you a request to
all the
join.
magic in his house. Okay, there we go. Let's take a look. We getting there. We getting there. We getting there. You should be popping up very soon. Yes, Baba, I have actually. It says unable to join. Let me see. Baba, I have. What's up? Hold on, fellas. We dang.
The
Hold on,
FBI
man.
don't want me to speak about
I
freedoms.
don't know why. Yeah. I mean, I do have some. Oh, there we
Okay,
go.
I think that's it. I
See.
think we did. I think we did.
All right. There we go. As
I'm
just so
still
y'all
trying to
know,
figure out
y'all
how
didn't
to
get to see
check
these
this phone.
back. Um, y'all didn't get to see this obviously on the other end, but we were having technical issues, and then we started talking, conjuring up the spirit of the Black Jesus off of Good Times that Michael was trying to tell his mom about.
There is only
And
one
as soon,
Jesus, and he is black.
hey, I'm just
We don't even
saying
have to
that as
call
soon
him
as we
black
started
Jesus
talking
because
about
he's Jesus.
the good time, okay, cool. I got you, Baba. That's excellent. I appreciate you. Hit me up. We're gonna talk about that. Hit me up as soon as you can because I'm open. So I appreciate you, Baba. I was talking to one of the people online, but yeah, hit me up,
No
Baba. We'll
doubt.
talk. But anyway, so after we started talking about the Black Jesus that Michael put on Good Times, we started conjuring them up. It started working. So we're good. We are here, Polka Dot Rabbit Podcast. As you know, Polka Dot Rabbit Podcast is here to uplift humanity. And overall, we are here to also help and assist in waking up the melanated, woolly-head beings that have been asleep for quite some time on this planet. In addition, we like to talk music. Because if y'all don't know already, you know what I'm saying? I'm a black rocker. Is that what they want to call it? Melanated rocker. You know what I'm saying? Afro punkster, punk black, whatever stuff. Did a lot of rock music back when I did music overall, and a lot of people don't know the behind the scenes about how people get into this type of music. You know what I'm saying? Even though we created it, but we're gonna talk about that tonight. I have a very that's it for me. But also, we're doing this. Please, if you haven't already, please follow, like, and share. Um, amazing night, a very talented guest, a cat that's got some serious history behind him, not only musically but in other things. And we're going to dabble in that as well. So this is going to be, a kind of, you know, um, and a balanced out, uh, um, balanced out conversation. If you haven't already, please go to polka dot rabbit podcast.com. Get my book by Cultural Living and Leaving the World of Illusion. If you haven't seen that, a lot of people always ask, where I get my diversity from. It's all in the book. You know what I'm saying? And we'll go from there. That's it for me. I'm hushing up. I'm gonna let my man Jared Hassan Foles take the plate. Please, brother, tell the people who you are, what you got going, and all that good stuff. Please.
My name is Jared, yo. I make noises, lots of them. They're usually very loud.
Okay.
Um, because
I
why
like
the
you
fuck
already.
not? Who's got more reason to be loud than us?
Yes,
Nobody.
indeed. Nobody.
Nobody. You know what? Maybe a few people, but that's on them. They can, promote their own loudness. Um, I'm the chief engineer and owner of a company based in Brooklyn called World Eater Recordings. Um, it's a label, it's a studio, it's a publishing company. The publishing arm is called World Eater Music. Um, we've been involved in a lot of stuff. We used to produce a lot of live shows that were the precursor to Afropunk. We actually were called on to do the original edits for the original Afropunk documentary. Um, the first Afropunk after party was held here. Um, I don't know if I want to talk about that because that was that was a mess. That was like a real mess.
Okay.
We don't
I like
what
that story
happens in
already.
Bed-Stuy stays in Bed-Stuy.
Okay, there you go.
Um, I'm also a songwriter, producer, instrumentalist. My main instrument is guitar. For those that know or don't know or whatever, I have a few different projects. Currently, the one I've been with the longest and my main one is Shrine for the Black Madonna, which is me, Jarius Odoms on bass, Gittes Janisaurus on drums, and Brian Tate on vocals. Um, I have another project that's been doing its thing for a while now called the Sweet Fuzzy Itsy Bitsy with me and various other players and vocalists, but the main vocalist I've done a lot of work with in that stead is Mark Montfleury, who at the moment is also lead singer of a band called Gag Nasty, another black rocker for lack of another term for what we do, I suppose. Um, I also produce a number of other acts. I'm at the moment recording and producing um, uh, a jazz act for bassist Tyree Pope called Tyree Pope Group. We're still in the middle of tracking for that at the moment. Um, I've had some bit parts in a couple of films. I spent about 3 years at the United Nations engineering stuff for them. I've supervised crews building out and doing operational production for stuff like NBA 2K and for the Roots and DJ Qbert for Intel. Ran a department, helped run a department for a couple of years for Goldman Sachs. Yes, they are the big evil empire, but they don't feel bad about it because they know they're the evil empire. And they're like, hey, man, you got to have a job. And the devil was the only one hiring. So you know what? You can't be but so mad at them. You know, you gotta try and make your way in this life, right? Yeah, that's I guess that's the sum of it so far. I'm sure there's a lot more to it
Oh
too,
yeah,
but
I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna dig in there. I want okay. Were you always questioned? Were you born in New York?
yeah, born and raised.
Okay. And which part?
Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy, even though I've lived in many different parts of New York City, the five
Mm-hmm.
boroughs. And I've done a bit of traveling as well. But I always say that wherever I go on this planet, this is where I leave my stuff.
Gotcha.
So
Okay. So my question is, and I love to ask this question. So talk about your introduction into not only music, but how did it progress into like rock music?
it's funny because I'm not sure that I'm entirely sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's a real funny thing. Um, my father, who was sort of he at the time that he had me, he was considered old. I was born in '70, so my father had me. I was 30. He was 31 years old at the time. That was considered old to have kids.
Mm-hmm.
At least back then it was. Um, and he was a supreme jazz head. He lived through the time when jazz was the popular music in the
Mm-hmm.
United States, right? Before it got into, you know, what was considered, soul and stuff like that, even though he was into all that as well. But jazz was his main thing. And he tried to infuse me with jazz from the time I was like literally an infant. Ironically, I hated jazz. I couldn't stand it until I was about 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't understand it, I
Yeah.
guess. And then I heard something on WBGO by Coltrane, and for some reason,
It clicked. Yeah.
love
Yeah.
jazz. But that was at 20. So before that, I'm absorbing all this jazz that is being forced down my throat by my father. My mother, who's not a jazz head, but is from the South. My mother's born and raised from Tuskegee, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Tuskegee, fighting black folks. On neither
Mm-hmm.
side of me are protesting black people.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of black folks I come from. I
Mm-hmm.
come from the pick up that bat and kiss them on the head kind of black folk. So, and I mentioned that because I think to a certain degree that was a little bit emblematic of their music,
Mm-hmm.
choices, or at least, what kind of got into them. But my mother was much more on the soul R&B tip of things, like
Mm.
Bobby Bland and
Love Bobby Blue.
um, I don't want to say James Brown too tough, but I know that her father loved James Brown, my
Mm-hmm.
grandfather. And so, stuff that had a bit more drive to it, but she also liked a lot of other, romantic song stuff, like that. I wish I could remember the name of this singer right now. That song "One in a Million." Oh, I used to hear him constantly, and now I can't think of his name. So, but she liked a lot of stuff like that. Dionne Warwick, loved Dionne
Mm-hmm.
Warwick,
Yeah.
um, and stuff like that. And that stuff touched me a little bit. And it wasn't that I was into it, but it's the stuff that as much as people don't talk about it, we have to acknowledge the fact that we're immersed in music initially that is often not of our own choosing, but it has
Mm-hmm.
a huge
Huge
influence,
effect. Yeah.
right?
Definitely.
And other than the things that she chose, she would constantly play the radio. Now, if my father was playing radio, it was always jazz radio. But if my mother was playing radio, it was more like hit R&B radio,
Mm-hmm.
which is a weird concept at that time in New York City, because hit R&B radio could have something pop up that's not exactly considered to be R&B,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when Prince first came on the scene,
Mm-hmm.
they were playing Prince's stuff, but they were playing stuff like Delirious, and I'm talking about like
Mm-hmm.
on Kiss FM,
Yeah.
along with all the other stuff that because they were always trying to be a little bit, ahead of the curve to a certain
Yeah.
degree.
Yeah.
And so I think what caught me, and this is where it gets really weird and specific, I think where it caught me was often my mother and I would go up to Harlem to visit my aunt. And we're on the FDR Drive, goes up the east side of Manhattan, down to the Brooklyn Bridge and back up. And so I'm, listening to the radio and I'm hearing these songs that got this pepped up step and drive to it while we're 40, 50 miles an hour on the city highway.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to a certain degree, it's part of the reason why I drive the way I drive to this day. I don't mean bad and wild per se.
Mm-hmm.
I don't drive slow. But when I drive, there's a certain thing that I need to hear as part of my environment that helps maintain my focus to a certain degree. And it's got to have a certain kind of energy to it. And I think that kind of put me on the path, to the type of stuff that I ended up getting into. Now, ironically, I eventually got to high school. I went to Brooklyn Tech. I think I was already open to a lot of different things long before I got even the tech.
Yeah.
So even though I grew up immersed in hip hop, in the culture and the sound of it, matter of fact, maybe I shouldn't say his whole name. I'm going to say his whole name. Vincent Mason, DJ Maceo from De La Soul. Me and him went to the same junior high school. We were in the exact same class together. You know, so we were next to each other every single day for 2 years. This was long before his, De La Soul days, before he moved to Long Island and stuff like that. But he was right here in Bed-Stuy. And even then, I was sort of in a different vein musically. I had a lot of hip hop in me. I hung around that and stuff like that. I was in that, but I also, still had the influence of jazz being forced down my throat. Still had the influence of R&B being heard around me, and the radio. And the radio ended up being not just, R&B, because it's, you turn that dial, you're listening for things just because you're searching for something interesting, and then you run into Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and then you run into eventually Hendrix. Thank you, Jesus, and the whole deal. Wow, what the fuck is this? Yeah. Whoa! And I think to a certain degree, what's attractive about it is as much that it's different from anything else being presented as it is whether the music has a certain quality or a certain value in and of itself, right? So, as I get further into high school, I'm into stuff like, I'm into Billy Joel, and I'm into the Rascals, and listening to other older doo-wop and stuff like that. And I think that there's a thing in American culture in general, regardless of your, personal familial makeup, where adolescent kids to a certain degree get into music and start making their music choices that are usually well older than where they are in their time now. They don't do it entirely. I'm plenty of them pursue what's presented for them as a product, but there's just as many of them who get into this stuff that's just much older than was even meant for them musically for some reason.
Yeah.
Until a boy of mine introduced me to two bands. He brought me a tape, and it was just a little regular demo tape with the name written on it. And I've been places in stores, that I've made tapes off the radio back in the day. That's how we did things. This wasn't that kind of tape. This was a tape that somebody obviously made and wrote their name on it and was just passing it around. But it wasn't the kind of tape that some third-party person listening on the radio recorded, because you were not going to find this on the radio. So this was a band that I recorded their shit to a cassette and put that shit in a little TDK little thing and hand wrote probably 500 of them and started selling them or whipping them out. And the band was Raw Deal, also known as Killing Time. At the time, they weren't just only Raw Deal.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck is this? And it was rageful. It was angry. It was very, very blunt in its lyrical targeting, but it was also mad funky. I mean, it wasn't just banging away rock. I mean, it had hip hop swing to it, with super drums. Listen, oh, by the way, if you hear that music in the background, so I'm on the second floor of the studio right now. That's on the main floor of the studio, and we got a last minute call for Shelly Nicole's Blackbush to rehearse here. And one of the members of that is V. Jeffrey Smith, who's a Grammy Award winner with The Family Stand. So he's downstairs with Jerome Jordan from Funk Face, Leon Brutman from Burnt Sugar, and a couple of other amazing cats. Actually, the original bassist for Dope Sagittarius. Blessings to the spirit of our brother Luke Mon, who we love and miss dearly. So that's happening in the background. If you can hear all that, I tried to put on echo cancellation, but they're doing their thing. So he introduced me to that, and then a week later, no, it wasn't just two, it was three bands. So it was Raw Deal first. Then he hit me with the Dead Kennedys.
Mm.
which is a whole different vibe. But what
Yeah.
really about the Kennedys, um, it didn't have that hip hop swing to it, but it had the speed, and it had, in particular, the political
Yeah.
awareness. It
Hmm.
wasn't just angry; it was specific.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
In
Yeah.
presenting things that were not just legal concepts, but actual, things in the law. And then this is at the same time that they had their big court case where they were getting fucked over and the police were raiding their places.
Mm.
And this dude started making records about it. That was that had me open.
Yeah. Yeah.
Had
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
open. And it was
Something you can
more
relate with.
than just the music. Right.
Yeah.
Then he hit me with Bad Brains.
Oh Lord.
That was it. So Bad Brains was
Praise the good time Jesus.
all that combined,
Yeah.
right? Combined with their spiritual piety
Yeah.
and faith in God,
Yeah.
which
Real
hit
talk.
everything for me. I got dragged to Sunday school when I was a kid with my great grandmother and the whole deal. I
Hmm.
wasn't mad about it. It wouldn't have been my first choice. I don't go there now, but I definitely believe in Jesus. And there doesn't have to be a black Jesus. There's only one Jesus. That white Jesus, that's a dude named Fred. I told you, I don't know who the fuck that is. But Jesus is a black dude. I know him. He, we talk. Right?
Yeah.
So,
He's only reason this is happening right now.
you know what I'm saying? Exactly.
I told that
That's the
story.
whole game right there.
I told the story.
So that's the thing. When I heard the brains, I was like, oh, that was it.
Yeah.
That was, and when years later, I saw the brains live for the first time at the Ritz with Leeway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Leeway, fucking amazing. And a couple of things I noted about seeing Bad Brains was, number one, how diverse, actually realistically diverse the crowd was.
Yeah. Back then. Yeah.
Right. And remember, this wasn't their first album. This was
Yeah.
this was during the I tour. So this is like, their second, third joint.
Mm-hmm.
Literally diverse. I mean, you got old Trinidadian and Jamaican sisters who were out there in their gowns and the whole deal. You're at a hardcore show. They're not downstairs in the pit with with the other crew, with like the Sharp Skinheads and Jackson Heights Posse Skins and DMS. They're not on the floor down there with those cats. And yeah, I know we could talk all about that.
I know, man. You dropping nuggets.
At the Studio 54 version of the Ritz. Let me put it like that.
Okay.
And people are, when they did I Survive, people got tears in their eyes at a fucking hardcore show. But but to a certain degree, it's unfair to call Bad Brains a hardcore band.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're more than that.
More than that. Yeah,
they always have been. So, but that's kind of where the track took me. And this is at the same time while the people around me started really getting into Metallica, because that's when they started to really come out. And that's when Slayer really came out. So Slayer wiped the board with everybody. Because even if you weren't into that stuff, you can't deny that they're just a brutal musicians, right? But, at the same time, Fishbone was doing their thing, but Fishbone was as underground in that realm as Raw Deal was.
Yeah.
Right?
Just started bubbling.
But I've never seen musicians with the physical ability to play such genius compositions with the ability that Fishbone had. To a certain degree still has. I don't think I've ever seen anyone or extremely
not all together in one, not even because like you go to for example, you go to a reggae show, right? You might see them doing their things, but you got a whole section to the side that's the horn section. But you don't have somebody that's playing keyboards and pick up the trombone, or another singer that three horns. I mean, I'm still,
but not all of them. Their skill level,
yeah,
both both when it comes to the composition
Yeah,
and their
exactly.
ability to perform the composition
Yeah,
at a particular rate of speed
yeah,
that takes
exactly.
such physical acumen
Yeah,
to do what
right,
they're doing,
right,
let
right.
alone musicianship,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
for them all to be able to
definitely.
do it like that to a man. And I tell you something, I've spent a little bit of time backstage with them
Hmm.
before shows, and the fact that they were able to go on stage and perform the way they perform after their
Yeah,
pre-show
yeah,
rituals is is
yeah,
amazingly
yeah,
impressive.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I
To
don't
be
know
tight.
any so-called great musician in any genre, anywhere, that has that capability. And they still do. And I saw Fishbone once where they had pretty much changed almost everybody in the band.
Yeah,
And I saw them with Rocky George at the
yeah, yeah. I
time,
remember
who I
that.
love
Yep.
from Suicidal
Yeah, for
Tendencies, no
suicidal.
deal.
Yeah,
And they were able to put together a band, Angelo
no
and
worries.
Walt,
No
that
worries.
had the same level of proficiency
Yeah, yeah,
when they were doing the Chim Chim tour.
yeah. Yep. I remember that.
It's insane. It's insane. And to me,
Yeah,
that's a
no, I
standard
agree.
for anybody in American music. And what's really interesting, in particular about Fishbone, and I know we're kind of going all over the place a
No, no,
little
no.
bit,
You're good. People. Well,
but
let me
Fishbone is
say this. Let me
really,
say this real quick. Let me say this real quick. And it's like I'm happy you're talking about this because, and that's what this whole show is about. Because people don't, they don't. A lot of people don't aren't exposed to this type of conversation about these bands. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And like the backside of it. A lot of people just see, oh yeah, Fishbone. I saw them on party grounds of it, but they don't understand just the bad brain stories, what I'm saying, the fishbone stories, all these or our heroes that were representing us. But go ahead.
And why they, right? Because it's not just the fun of the music for
Yeah,
a lot of us.
exactly.
It's the ability and the depth of what they bring. Fishbone
Exactly.
is the only American group that to me is a direct descendant
Hmm.
of Louis Armstrong's
Yeah,
compositional
yeah. I
theories
agree. I agree.
and musicianship.
I agree
And Louis
100%.
Armstrong is the central core of all American
Yeah. Yep.
original
Hmm.
American music.
Yep. Yep.
And unfortunately, people in the United States don't understand that about their own culture, that they
Yeah.
have a culture. And I mean the
Hmm.
white kids too. This is part of your culture, whether you understand that or not. And you can resist it, you can deny it, you can hate on it. But if not for this and those of us, there is no you. You can be mad about it as you want.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
We survived without y'all, but y'all could not survive without
Hmm.
us, and you can
That's
fight
it.
about it, whatever. But the only one really fighting is y'all.
Yeah. Yeah.
you
It should
know,
be. It should be known as a fact at this point. You know what I'm
right?
saying?
I mean, no one's making any more money because of it.
Yeah. You
It's
know what I'm
it's
saying?
just facts of history and
Yeah.
mathematics, right? It is what it is.
Hmm.
So that's I guess my path to me wanting to write and play my own music because I wasn't for hearing what I want to hear. That's really the essence of why I got into it and why I still do it. For the most part, I'm not hearing what I want to hear.
Hmm.
Um, and so, you know, if you have a problem, whatever the problem is, what's the best way to get it solved?
Hmm.
Fucking do it yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Just
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
it.
No. Real talk. Real talk.
And you don't necessarily hold on to the results. You do what you get, you strive for what you strive for. It may have some larger attachments eventually. You may add on to what your ideas are, your purposes, or what your goal may be, but
Hmm.
that's essentially it. I try and I try and give at a minimum give myself what I want,
Yeah.
and I want to hear something different. And
What
yeah,
what was okay when you hear somebody like because a lot of people that don't know, you know, you can have somebody like Bob Marley in which lyrics were some of Bob Marley's lyrics with some of the most like just heavy, like just devastating things you could put out there, And
facts.
then you listen to HR, even though the music's faster and all, it's punk, but it's like you listen to HR and you're like, oh my God, what is this man, you know, do you understand what this man is saying? You know what I mean? Like, were you making that connection back then? Were you conscious minded to understand when he's coming? Because, or did it hit you later on?
No. I was into it then. You know, one thing that's changed in the culture
Mm-hmm.
that I think was always critically important when it came to people who absorb music,
Mm-hmm.
and it's different now because music is presented only in digital, intangible format primarily
Mm-hmm.
now, right? Are lyric sheets
Yeah,
along with the music,
exactly.
because there's a few philosophies of mixing. I could tell you one, especially out of New York City hardcore, that a lot of hardcore, and sometimes people think it's a mistake, but it's not a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Hardcore was often purposely mixed so that the vocals were either just at or a little bit below the rest of the band.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a reactionary behavior toward a lot of pop music where the
Mm-hmm.
vocalist is centered out in
All
front and
high. Yeah.
everything,
Mm-hmm.
and in some ways separate from the rest of the musicians as part of it. And the whole idea was that, you're part of this, you're not separate from this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
legally in the United States, lyrics without music is a poem. Music without lyrics is still a song.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this was an attempt to kind of pull or knock singers off their pedestal in some way, shape, or form. That was the
Mm-hmm.
idea behind it.
Mm-hmm.
But just for myself, just in a matter of audiology,
Mm-hmm.
I tend to prefer the vocalist to be very clear and have their own space
Yeah.
and hopefully still be very well heard,
Mm-hmm.
but not so far out ahead of the music and
Yeah.
band.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sound
Yeah.
like one unit
Yeah.
to a certain degree,
I
right?
got you.
Because the reality is people, when they listen to something, focus on a lot of different things. Some people focus more on the rhythm section than anything else.
Exactly.
Some people
Exactly.
focus
Yep.
on the guitar, some people focus on the
Bass.
keys,
Yep.
some
Mm-hmm.
people focus on the vocalist, right?
Exactly.
So, a listener may not necessarily get what the lyrics are, what that spoken ideology is coming out of a particular song.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's what's influencing the musician. Sometimes it's something about that music that's influencing the vocalist or the lyricist,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's all one thing. And for me, I always got into that, especially with the kind of parents I had, because while they never dissuaded me from the stuff that I was into,
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of parents, they were a little bit concerned. I know my father was concerned when I first brought a token entry tape home. Like, listen to these white boys. What the hell is this and this punk? This hard? And I don't know what this is. But when he read the lyrics, he
Yeah.
was like, I can't tell you. This is very positive
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
stuff. This is the
Yeah.
kind of stuff I want you to. I'm glad that this is what you're. I don't know what else you're doing, but
Mm-hmm.
if this is what you did, you're 15, 16 years old, and this is what I can't not be comfortable,
Yeah. Yeah.
with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So, not that I had to go and show them my stuff, but I was like, me and my papa having a discussion one day, and I was like, man, here, just read it for yourself. He was like, oh. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I actually gave him some Nuclear Assault to read
Oh.
their lyrics, because
Uh-huh.
Nuclear Assault, if you listen to it, you listen to it, it's one thing, it's the screaming, it's the rage, but when you
Mhm.
read their lyrics,
Yeah.
almost everything is about climate change. And this we're
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
late 80s, early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Every Nuclear Assault was about climate change
Mm-hmm.
and protecting nature.
Real issues. Yeah, man. Yeah. Real.
You know?
Real talk, man.
And so here's, HR, he's not just talking religion, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's
Mm-hmm.
talking spirituality
Yeah.
connected to political reality and
Mhm.
indemnification
Mm-hmm.
for people who've been, oppressed from that, not
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
in a so-called racial way, but in a political way and in a personal way.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
And I remember, HR was quoted in the book Dance of Days, which is all about DC punk and the whole deal. And so much of that was based on the Bad Brains and sort of an outside but up close view of the Bad Brains in the community. And to a certain degree, it touches on why they were quote unquote banned from DC and made the move to New York. But you know, Bad Brains started out playing free shows in the projects to black kids and playing what that's all sped up and whatever. And I've heard this from more than just HR, but HR, was really specific that the audience that he was trying to reach primarily were us.
Yeah.
And that's what that stuff was written for and everything. And that it was a bit disappointing for him to receive almost an exclusive response from white kids.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, let's be plain about it. To a certain degree, there's no more group of people on the earth that are in need of some real spiritual connectivity and awareness, right? Than our Anglo-Saxon cousins, for lack of a better term, but yeah, I can completely see how it's disappointing to him because he's aiming this because of course we obviously need it, but it's something that we live whether we're conscious of it or not. Yeah. But our task is to get us to be more specifically conscious and mindful of it all the time. We're not devoid of it. We exist of it, literally. But we're constantly trying to be programmed out of our right mind and out of our right spirit, which is part of the problem. And unfortunately, the fact that lyrics are no longer attached directly to music, is a huge problem with that. That's one of the things that I was never into about hip hop. I've always loved it. I've always been into hip hop. But in hip hop, there's often a lack of the inclusion of printed lyrics, and it's been that way throughout the history of hip hop. And I wonder what that's about because they're often saying stuff that's as profound as anything HR saying. If only if only people were able to read half of Chuck D's stuff.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Can you imagine? Just so.
No, I agree 100%. But it's like on the flip side, it's kind of like it's like two separate ways. It's like dealing with somebody like HR when he's putting this punk out and he's reaching the vast majority of a white audience, and then with hip hop, that conscious lyrics, you know what I'm saying, coming out. Oh, hold on a second. Can you? Okay, there you go.
No, sorry, man. I'm here. I gotta text my wife.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. The conscious music that's going to, specifically, melanated beings, black folks. You know what I mean? But you keep on doing that, you're starting to wake people up. You know what I'm saying? It's just like Bob Marley. I think that I heard that.
1 second, bro. Hey, would you mind going downstairs and letting them know I'm still in this interview here?
Sorry, what?
Could you go downstairs and just let them know that I'm still doing this here? Thank you. Go slow. Take your time.
But no, you know what I'm saying? You got these lyrics, these hardcore lyrics, you know what I'm saying? Talking about everything we talk about that HR's talk about, to a certain degree, talking about, X-Clan, all this stuff, you know what I'm saying? Reaching specifically to black folks, and next thing you know, they see that that's a threat, and then all that conscious hip hop turns into gangster rap.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or even going back, like I said earlier, like they used to ban, like I think Survival, that album by Marley did, Survival, that joint was banned in Africa, in Zimbabwe. If you bought it, they literally bought it, took what they call razor blades, and it looks like he's spinning on IG. I don't know if you see that or not.
No, I didn't go back to it yet. You just
Okay. Oh, there you go.
right.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So they literally like back in those days they banned that music and they were saying that was one of the reasons why Zimbabwe was liberated because, that music, you know what I'm
And they
saying?
try to do
So
the same thing to Fela. I mean, they
yeah,
did even
exactly,
worse
exactly.
to Fela.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. You know what I
But
mean?
but they're also trying to do the same thing to so-called gangster stuff here.
Yeah.
And I mean, I understand people's hesitancy,
Mhm.
right? But including our own people, especially
Mhm.
with what we're dealing with internally, um, as far as the violence that we're dealing with inside of our culture, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But they're ignoring the reality that whether a musician is writing from personal experience
Mhm.
or whether he's writing from third party experience, like John Cougar Mellencamp writing Jack and Diane,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
right? Gangster rap represents a portion of American culture that is born out of reality.
Mhm.
And artists represent that,
Mhm.
period.
Yeah, it's true.
So,
Art
you
imitates
know,
life.
that has to always have not only some, access to the market, but people that listen to it have to understand that this is a story of an experience, of an
Mhm.
experience.
Mhm.
Whether it's real or not real is not the point, right?
Mhm.
The point is it's a story.
Yeah.
You don't have to take this story so deep into your own existence in this life that
Mhm.
you need to mimic this or that or whatever.
Yeah,
If
yeah, 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 yeah.
if you're living that life and you can attach some of your own experience and find some sort of validation in it, well, okay, great, because that's part of what music does, right?
Mhm.
But if you're looking for that as a window or a justification for anything that you might do or might not do, now you have a problem,
Mhm.
right? And I understand that a lot of people are not equipped to make that kind of discernment.
Mhm. Yeah.
I've always been able to make that kind of discernment. Even,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. Me too.
I'm that's just me. I don't expect that everybody's able to, but but the reality is that we have to make it clear within our culture, and I mean our overall culture, but specifically in our culture,
Yeah.
that that's what's happening, and
Mhm.
that's what that is. It's just like when my father said to me, "Yeah, you know what? You're watching TV. What's on TV is not real."
Mhm.
Okay, that person is real, and there are some things that are real, but let's
Yeah.
explain to you how to make the difference between
Yeah.
reality, right,
And what you're seeing on that too.
something simulated
Yeah.
that you can, there's degrees and levels of everything. And let's teach you something about those degrees and levels. And that's
Okay.
what's being wiped out of, the discussion,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
political gain for somebody else.
So you hear these lyrics, you hear the Dead Kennedys, you hear Bad Brains, you hear Fishbone, all these conscious lyrics. You know what I'm saying? You're hearing this as a young man. How did that influence you into making it like how did that make you your consciousness how did you take that and moving it into your life, like, you know what I'm saying, like what was it that did you started like reading more books, you started like what did you start getting spiritual, like what was that transition?
I don't know. I think I was already that person before I heard it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what was striking to me was that there was somebody else who had similar thoughts, similar
Yeah,
feelings, similar
yeah,
experiences.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Even
You said that
though
often.
most of them were older than me,
Mm-hmm.
but I think what it showed me was that there is a realistic path of what you're sensing, what you're doing, how you're,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, they're all gone. Um, I loaned a cable to somebody. I hope they left it. um,
Musician talk.
yeah, musicians, running a studio,
Mm-hmm.
so, um, yeah, I think I was already there. I mean, so I think one thing that it did was it gave me a different perspective in the things that I was already sensing.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense,
Um,
I can see that.
I can't say that it caused me to say, wow, let me go read this or let me go do this in
Yeah.
any way that was directly conceptual.
Yeah.
I'm sure in some ways it did. It's just hard to kind of pinpoint what that was. Well, ironically, I will say that dead Kennedys definitely had that kind of effect on me.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a much more ethereal, straight legal effect kind of way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And that's, I think, what I always found really striking about them. You know, I think up until that point, um, what I understood and was deeply connected with, my father was a Panther.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my mother grew up in Alabama, but came to New York, became a social worker and stuff like that. So there's, large portions of my family were,
Mm.
all about doing the specific work of,
Yeah.
upliftment
For the
and support
people.
for the
Yeah.
things that
Mm-hmm.
we've gone through, historically in this country. Um, the difference with dead Kennedys, regardless of what, the culture, whatever the iteration of Jello Biafra and stuff like that, and LGBTQ stuff, because back then that wasn't a specific tagline.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just
So,
there.
right. It wasn't, well, they were all in San Francisco and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of that and what was happening out there, because that was pretty crazy what was happening out there with that and Harvey
Mm-hmm.
Milk,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure informed some of what they were dealing with. We're also talking about other people who were also older than me at the time. So they had a lot more specific experience that they had already lived through that I'm absorbing through a cassette tape, right? But what struck me was that these weren't things that you just had to spiritually endure and find a way through. There was a specific method and process that you could do to keep them off you and kick them back in their teeth,
Yeah.
regardless of who you were, as long as you were willing
You followed it.
to
Yeah.
do what needed to be done
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and deal with whatever you may have had to deal with. And
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing I took particularly from that. There's a part of us, and I think our, collective Native American and African side of things that is always about enduring and staying strong. Remembering
Yeah.
who you are and fighting through it
Mm-hmm.
without the specifics, right? Of saying, well, what you do is you go down and you do this paperwork for this lawsuit. Now, there's a specific reason for that, right? Because so much of the processes of the things in this country we've had the experience don't work for us in the same way as somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's legit. But it doesn't mean that you just avoid it altogether, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
for me, and I don't know if I should say this in these public forums, but fuck it, I'm going to say
Please.
it. For
Please
me,
say it.
the dead Kennedys, well, when I say it, you'll find out why.
Mm-hmm.
The dead Kennedys, in some ways, were like Sinn Féin in the
Mm-hmm.
IRA,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, they would sit there and they're going to talk about how, yeah, we're going to sue these cops for what they've done, and we got the right to do this, and we're going to make sure that, regardless of who they think they are and how much power they got and they got guns, we're going to make sure that we have our rights. And so we're going to do that part. But we're also going to fuck with these motherfuckers for fucking with us. And so this is why they had songs like DMSO.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? If anybody knows what DMSO is or was, and I won't get into all that, but if you want to, look up DMSO and what it is and what it was, and then find the song by the Dead Kennedys where they explain what they would do with DMSO. And so, like Sinn Féin and the IRA, they would take a two-prong approach, and I think considering that, unfortunately or fortunately, these things are about, not just our survival, not just our ability to do whatever we want to do, just like anybody else, right? But to be able to live the words of that, American preamble in its full
Mm-hmm.
throated whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
not only will I do this process, but I'll do some things that keep you out of my face and make you think twice about coming and fucking with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to a certain degree, that's also, without them thinking about it, is a nexus of what many of what's being put, expressed in gangster rap or so-called gangster rap
Mm-hmm.
is about as well,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not necessarily directed at each other all the time, even though it may be written that way.
Mm-hmm.
Even though at the same time, there's a lot of those who do write things that way. That's as large as their world is at the moment. And so you write what you know.
Yeah. It for me it was for me hearing all this conscious hip hop in the 90s, and then the switch hit to gangster rap, you know what I mean? And then but also it's like you had I was it was so beautiful to hear something like, Wu-Tang,
Mm-hmm.
five percenters,
Yes,
five percenters that were really talking that they were really true to life five percenters and able to bring that information to the people, you know what I mean? Or and X Clan and all these different cats, you know, that it all just didn't die with gangster rap. You know what I mean?
right,
There was a
right.
wave of that conscious hip hop that stayed, and to see somebody like Wu Tang and some of the stuff they were saying, yeah, they talked there, that what's the face stuff, but they were talking about the lessons, you know what I'm saying, and they were bringing that
Absolutely.
to, what I'm saying, they were bringing that to the people, you know, and so many, it's so interesting, man, like because so
But
many
they're also
people,
talking about their everyday lives. And I
yeah,
think,
yeah, yeah,
whatever value people take from it or don't take from it, or however it might make them uncomfortable,
mm-hmm,
it's a reality to existence in the United States.
yeah.
And that's what it is. And,
Mhm. A lot of people don't
this
have a clue.
right, and
Hmm.
now we're in this universe where prosecutors are attempting to prosecute
Yeah,
people
people off their
based on
lyrics.
their lyrics,
Yeah,
while at the same time you have this fascist in Florida who is trying to propagate, the exact same thing from the opposite side.
yeah, yeah,
Right? I mean, that's literally what's happening, and people find it acceptable. But
yeah,
what strikes me is that what's to a small degree what's happening is that the that American culture is starting to eat itself
yeah.
for all of its past sins because it
Exactly.
won't deal with those sins openly and
Exactly.
honestly.
Oh, yep. It's true. No, you're right. No, because and you're 100% right. And I see the same exact thing that you're talking about. It's like if for even perfect example, you said earlier, talk about us as black folks or even American Indians or Native Americans, how you want to say
Mhm.
it, like all these different things and the story behind all that going away as true Native Americans. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
That's right.
And you want to go do everything against true history, you know, and put this fault like it's like like the movie Poltergeist, taking the Native American burial ground, burying it,
Hmm.
and just put houses on top of it.
And then
You
act
know what I'm
like it's
saying?
not there.
And then acting like it's not there. And exactly, that's
And
all.
you think you're not going to pay a cost for it.
Exactly, all dirt comes out in the wash, man. And I
Like the
agree
dude that
100%.
just snatched that wig off of that sister's head
Yeah.
here in the city,
Hmm.
then wouldn't respond to her
Yeah.
as if she didn't exist.
Yeah.
But now you don't have a job. Not that a
I mean,
job is the only thing to have in the world, but
yeah.
now you
No,
don't
no,
have
no.
it. You
You're right.
definitely wanted it,
No,
and
but I would think that goes
it's
along also what you're saying, just about like the universal aspect of all this, because music and consciousness, depending on what how the people express themselves, it's all connected. It's all interconnected. You know what I mean? It's just better. It's just beautiful. It's even more beautiful when you have that type of information conveyed with a beautiful soundtrack in the background. You know what I mean? You know,
absolutely
You know what I'm saying? It's just better that way as opposed to somebody speaking with a megaphone or whatever the case may be. We do the same thing. You know, same thing you talk about like Chuck D, fight the power. You know what I'm saying? That whole aspect, the whole video, that whole thing, that whole concept of Spike Lee. You know what I'm saying? Just
Yes.
taking that with the Malcolm image and all that stuff, and just like in the true message behind all of that. You know what I'm saying? How much more in your face about the world can you get? You know what I'm saying? All through hip
I,
hop.
I
You know what I'm
I guess to some small degree a lot more, but
saying?
it. I mean, it's hard to say, man. Everyone's got a different path,
Yeah.
right? Everyone's got a different level of understanding because we're all in different places at different
Yeah.
times.
Yeah. Yeah. Most
But
definitely.
but and a fact can be conceptualized in a number of different ways, even
Yep.
though
Yep. Yep.
it
Even
a
though
fact is
a
what a
fact is a
fact
fact.
is,
Yeah. A fact is a fact.
right?
Yeah. But I think that's a very good point that you bring up. Just in this day and time, how um the veil is being unlifted. It's being lifted, I should say, about all the realities, are historically, as I like to say. You know what I'm saying? Historically or historically, how the veil is being lifted to see. Because I'm gonna tell you something straight up, Jared. Like real talk, I'm gonna keep it real. And I say this all the time. I had no idea that all that debauchery in Hollywood was how it was, how it's been going for years. I didn't know that stuff was going down. I'm just watching my movies, like hey, you look at these celebrities and like,
Sure.
you know what I'm saying. And that now you're hearing all this stuff, how they're all pedophiles and they, doing all this kind of crazy stuff. You're like, and then it all starts to make sense. It's a
Right.
big scheme of thing, and the whole picture. It's just how I'm gonna say demonic for lack of better terms, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
How nasty this system really is. The
Well,
stuff that, and all the programming that's coming along with it, you know what I'm saying?
I don't disagree, right?
Hmm.
But I to a small degree, I think of it a little bit differently.
Hmm.
Only because all of these little pockets of industries, creativities, little
Hmm.
groups of things or whatever, right?
Hmm.
Everything is a microcosm of the larger thing that we're all part of.
Yeah, the larger
So
entity. Yeah.
if there's 300 million human beings in this place,
Hmm.
and a certain percentage behave in this way, another percentage behave in this way, right?
Hmm.
As you make those groups smaller,
Hmm.
those percentages don't necessarily get smaller. You might have a
Yeah.
group of only 10 people.
Yeah.
One of those people in there is bound to be the idiot,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Maybe three people in there are bound to be of a particular, you know, political or philosophical persuasion that's different from the other 70%,
Hmm.
right? So, you know, Hollywood is relatively a small group of people.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And we're not talking about those that, do the actual work. We're talking about those who are in positions of power to make
Yeah.
decisions that affect a
Hmm.
large
Hmm.
group
Hmm.
besides themselves, right? That's a
Hmm.
relatively small group of people. And they had already shown deference to one person, Roman Polanski,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
In what seemed to be pretty obvious behavior about
Yeah.
him.
Hmm.
They've also seemed to have shown deference to another one that's still on the scene right now, Woody Allen.
Yeah.
Though
Right in front of your face.
even though there was a lot more direct evidence about Polanski
Hmm.
than I can say there is about Woody Allen, but there
Hmm.
seems to be more than enough testimony from those
Hmm.
directly involved
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
Woody Allen. Not to mention whether we had that testimony or not. I'll never forget my father. My father, as much as he loved the Knicks, never wanted to go to another Knicks game because they kept letting Woody Allen in there. And he had
Mm.
the audacity to show up there with, and my father's like, you know what, regardless of whether he actually did something with that young girl or not,
Mhm.
the idea that he, who adopted that young girl and presented himself in a certain type of relationship,
Yeah.
then flipped that into this kind of relationship, even if there wasn't any, sexual
Yeah.
impropriety going on,
Mm-hmm.
that by
End
itself
result.
disgusted my father. And the fact that
Yeah.
they allowed that man to do that, when we know for a fact that the system itself would fully prosecute anybody that did not look like him,
Exactly.
said, my father, I'll never sit in Madison Square Garden again.
Mm.
And he didn't. So, it's we don't even necessarily have to suggest that that is a reality of the system of existence for us to decide, you know what? I don't like that shit. I'm not going to be fucking
You
part
can
of
be
it.
a part of it. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that's how you want to deal. I don't have to talk about this any longer. I've tried to be fair about it. I've tried to be open about it. I've tried to be negotiable about it. But if you really think that I really have to accept this and you're not really listening,
Mm-hmm.
but you want to present it as listening, I
Mm-hmm.
don't have to,
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll just see
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
happens next.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it at that.
It's just strange, especially after that whole the whole COVID thing went down. That's just amplified my my view on this, not only being a prisoner of the planet, but just the aspect of the control of the media and the programming and the power of the media. You know what I'm saying? And how it's used to just how it can be used to just as a weapon. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, and I just looked at all this, like my, and I call myself a pretty astute person, conscious, whatever the case may be, but this took things, just what we're dealing with, to a whole new level.
Mhm.
That whole COVID thing, like I don't believe nothing. You know what I'm saying? That I see on TV. You know what I'm saying? I don't. You've already told me. I didn't even hardly believe you before, but now ain't no way in the hell I'm listening to nothing that you're saying. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I have to say, the things that I absorbed from Dead Kennedys and Bad Brains and
Mm-hmm.
Fishbone and
Mm-hmm.
even from Metallica, right,
Yeah.
to a certain degree, even from, you know, I mentioned before John Cougar Mellencamp, even though I mentioned him in a
Mm-hmm.
different way, but
Mm-hmm.
but not just that, Michelle and Cello,
Yeah.
for example, Joan Armatrading,
Mm-hmm.
um, all of these influences. I had to speak to some of the sisters because they were just as influential as
Yep.
anything else on me.
Most definitely.
Are things that never left me when I spent time at the United Nations, when I spent time
Mm-hmm.
at JP Morgan Chase, when I spent time at Goldman Sachs, and was blessed to be, the spook who sat by the door. And
Yeah.
actually, I
Yeah.
didn't get to
Yeah.
sit by the door. I was
Yeah.
inside the door. I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
in the room.
The spook sitting in the
Um,
front row.
yeah, blessing of, this. So, there's the music side of me, but the music side of me led to the engineering side. The engineering side led me right into that for, particularly because I own this place,
Mm-hmm.
and so what I get to hear and how they conceptualize these things,
Mm-hmm.
because in reality, there's so much stuff that's just not secret.
Yeah.
You're just
Exactly.
not in the room, and they know you're not in the room. They ain't thinking about you.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
like I'm here in my room and we're doing, I ain't thinking about half this stuff until it's right there. Just,
Right in front of you. Yeah.
I mean, they are still people. And I say that not simply as a matter of sympathizing, with other humans and
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
we
Yeah. Yeah.
all,
Yeah.
right? But the fact that they are just humans
Mm-hmm.
and they are not omnipotent,
The boogeyman. Yeah.
right? They are not all powerful.
Yeah.
They are not all geniuses.
Yeah.
Some of them have
I
some
agree.
genius. Genius is not, an invincibility cloak, and it can all be dealt with if we don't talk ourselves out of it,
Yeah.
you know.
That's a real
which can
good point.
happen sometimes in the smallest
Mhm.
ways, you know.
So true.
And that's the thing. But we often talk ourselves out of shit,
Mhm.
especially when things get uncomfortable or they seem
Mhm.
scary,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know, or that seems like it's not something that we know how to deal with, or it seems like it's outside of a moral scope that we're not used to, as
Mhm.
if any of this, morality play is real. People ignore the fact that, we talk about Jesus left and right. People seem to forget that the father of Jesus used to wipe people the fuck out.
Yeah.
Okay? I say that's not necessarily how we need to do, but that's,
Mhm.
let's be real with it. You have to take all of the story, not just part of the story,
Yeah. Yep.
to do
That's
these things
true.
with it. We were provided all the tools, and I think that reminding ourselves of that, you know, um, is what gives us the strength to say, hey, we can do A, B, C, D, F, and G. We don't have to necessarily
Mhm.
accept whatever it is that we're being pushed to accept, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be confrontational, right? But it can be that too. If
I,
God forbid it
you
has to
know.
be, it doesn't have to be that. It just has to be remembering that an individual or you individuals or whatever it
Mhm.
is are as powerful as anybody else.
Anybody else? Yep.
Get four or more in a room doing the
Mhm.
same thing, then you have just as much power and
Power.
drive,
Yep.
focus, and you don't have to know everything, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes you just have to know, hey, you know what? We don't know this, but you know who might know this person? Let's call them.
Yeah. Somebody else. Yep. Collective.
Let's what? Let's see. Let's have a conversation then.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, man. No, no, and that's so true. And ultimately, I think that is a day and time in which you know looking for assistance for something like the government, people are like, well, now they're second guessing it, and people are starting to rely more on their own intuition and also doing their own research. Because I was telling, I had this conversation with my brother. I was like, if you think we were talking about religion, I was like, if you think that these people that rule this world will give you the key to living in one of the books they translated and gave you,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Good luck on that. Even knowing even inside of all these specific books, there's esoteric books inside of the books that people don't even know about. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Or even secret societies that ran inside of this information that they want to give you half the information which these people study. So I think this is the day and time in which it's all it's inevitable of the consciousness of humanity waking up. you know
Sure.
and
And
also
so
it's
much
real.
of that is in music
Yeah, exactly,
because
exactly.
it seems that, aside from television or film,
Mhm.
music is the one discipline that people focus on in such a way and they absorb what's provided to them, the messages that are provided to them in such a way that really gets into them unlike anything else.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just a matter of how they process what they're listening to and what they choose to listen to.
That's so true, man. Because I'm gonna tell you something, man. I was riding down the street, and this is just like observation I'm seeing, just being just seeing. I was riding down the street, right, and I'm hearing this bass thumping, right, and I'm pulling up to the car, or whatever, to
I'm
ride.
sorry, give me 1 second. Will
Oh,
you
okay.
just my wife is trying to sneak past the camera for
Oh,
some
go
reason.
ahead. No, it's all good. Get on.
It's just the whole
Oh,
world. Don't worry
yeah.
about it. Just it's all right.
That was a good sneak. Tell her it was a great sneak job, by the way. But but I'm sitting there driving, right? and I'm listening to this bass thumping, whatever. And I come into the line, look over, and and it's this average, not average, I guess just a corny looking white dude, probably 18 years old, bumping the music, some of this new hip hop or whatever, you know, and I used to not expect to see that. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? In the day, back in the day. But just like you were saying, like just imagine how much influence jazz had back in that time on all of America, and how hip hop, it's like all these kids that I see, they all wearing like Air Force Ones, and they all got what I'm saying. It's like
Right.
the style and the culture that I'm seeing today, and not only that, but it's just like even when it comes down to race relations, like I'm just seeing that I something new that I'm seeing when it even comes to race relations. You know what I mean? And I don't know if it's just
Sure.
the culture, America, and all that hip hop culture and everything is just like completely submerged and just been supplanted and everything. But you know, it's like it's becoming it's this place is shaping into something else that I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm you know what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
I've seen the shape, but now I'm really starting to see, especially with this new generation, it's something different. You know what
I
I
think
mean?
I think you know as we get older,
Yeah.
I think to a small degree, older people are looking for things that are a bit more familiar,
Yeah.
right? And by the time that you get around 30 or 40, generation changes,
It's James. Yeah.
right? Everything has been relatively the same, and you've been riding along with it, and you just now got everything figured out. And you
Yeah.
turn around like, wait, where the hell did these kids come from? Why are they
Exactly.
so
I agree
skinny?
100%, man.
And all that sort of stuff. And it's not
Yeah.
just that they're skinny, it's that you're bigger,
Yeah.
because that happens as you age in the United States,
Yeah.
right? Even if you stay in shape, whatever, you go to the gym, it's just part of what human bodies do, but nobody talks
Yeah.
about that part, right? But they've
Hmm.
also now, you turn around, you're like, that was 20 years ago, and
Hmm.
all these other things have happened, and all these other people have been born, and they talk to each other. They don't talk to you,
Yeah. Exactly.
and they've got their own secrets and their own
Hmm.
code words and their
They don't
own
share it. Yeah. They don't share that.
thing. And
Yeah.
well, they don't even know to share. Why would they share with you? They
Yeah.
haven't been hanging out with you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. Yeah.
haven't,
Yeah.
not just you, but just
Yeah. 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 I got you.
they're in a whole nother pod, right?
Yo, no, no, and it's funny, man, because I just saw that Disney movie, the Marvel movie with the um with the brother, like the quantum thing, the Ant-Man
Oh,
quantum.
Jonathan Majors,
Yeah,
who's an
Jonathan Majors.
amazing actor, but may have some other problems that he's going to have to deal
Oh
with.
yeah, 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 yeah. He might be on that. He's going back to the Hollywood thing, but that's a different. I
Hey,
don't
I
digress.
wonder if the courts will ignore all his shenanigans.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I'm looking at that, right? And dealing with the timelines and time travel. And it's like I feel as though like experiencing that
Mhm.
with this whole shift. You know, like literally. It's like, it's like that stuff back there. I know it happened, but then what type of influences I have now? You know what I'm saying? Or it's odd, man. You know what I'm saying? It's cool. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm seeing um I think personally, I'm just seeing more cohesiveness among the younger generations
Mhm.
that we might experience.
Once
You know
you
what
get
I'm
away
saying?
from so much of the angst that exists in the
Yeah,
media,
yeah,
and just
yeah,
on a level of just people,
yeah. Exactly,
you
exactly.
know,
Hmm.
even with whatever the things they may carry in the back of their mind
Hmm.
that they won't express. I'm sure that there are people that I interact with who probably think some horrid things,
Yeah.
and probably in their own private enclave say
Hmm.
some horrid things,
Hmm.
but would never express those things in my face.
Yeah.
Right now,
That ain't going away. Yep.
it comes down to when we're right here, can we politic?
Hmm.
Can we, you know, find common ground? Can we produce something that is common to both of us that takes away all
Mm.
that other stuff and
Yeah,
the
yeah,
whole,
yeah,
and that's
yeah,
what becomes important, and that's usually the stuff that I try and stick to. But
yeah,
I also pay quick attention for when that's not the case,
yeah. I
because
got you.
that can work that way,
Yeah,
because people that look just like us.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
I've had that experience just in the last few hours, if not days.
Yeah.
All right.
No, no, it's real talk, man.
That
You
look
know what
just
I'm
like
saying?
me. And it's like, but we can't hear
Yeah,
and we can't actively produce, create, negotiate politic. And it's like, yo, and
yeah.
or listen,
Simply listen.
and it's, or they're trying to manipulate what listening is supposed to be,
Mhm.
right? I'll be too long-winded, but then they'll cut me off to finish what I'm saying. But then they'll go for 2 hours straight, and I'm not supposed to. But no one's supposed to
Yeah,
notice that or speak about it.
yeah,
So,
yeah, 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 yeah.
that's sort of, but it's real.
Mhm.
Right? It's a real thing. So
Man,
you know,
it's it's interesting to me, just because like you said, you traveled. I've been around, this globe. Met, and I always say at the time, met beautiful, wretched people from all different avatars. You know what I'm saying? Male, female,
mhm,
melanated, non-melanated. You know what I mean? And it's just interesting just how the more that you see what life is really about, how all of that stuff really just goes to the side and you're just dealing with, you know, these energies, these personalities, these people, and a lot of this stuff, how we were told to hate each other just because, like you said, or not dislike each other, it's because of programs. Just like the
right,
Matrix. That's why I love the Matrix so much, man. It's like, you wouldn't have told me, like I write in my book, you wouldn't have told me nothing. I was not some of my friends, brother, or just good friends like that, like I'd do anything for. Somebody had to come out of there and tell me that those kids were different than me. You know what I mean? If I
yeah,
was never told, I was never programmed to think somebody different, then I would never in my lifetime ever to looked at anybody different. You
right.
know, it's
But
all programming.
I was always taught that people are different, but that's okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
People
exactly.
can be different. Things are always different, but you should just get to enjoy the difference.
Yeah, exactly,
That's
exactly,
that's what brings expansion.
exactly right. Yep, and that's what
And I think that's what struck me in particular about the music that that really drew me,
Hmm.
because not only was it not all the same
Hmm.
of what was being thrown at me, and I
Hmm.
don't just mean like with my parents and the jazz stuff like that, but even what the commercial radio world will. This is what you should listen to. This is what we
Yeah.
pick as the best stuff, and
Hmm.
I'm like, what? You
Yeah.
and
I feel for that.
I had to
Yeah.
go I had to go outside. I think to a certain degree, it's why I do so many different things, which to a certain degree in music, is not necessarily a good thing. I think people kind of look at you as some sort of megalomaniac, or you ain't got no friends.
Yeah.
That's why you do. But I didn't learn things that way.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
did.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did 5 or 6 different jobs because I literally thought it was all one job.
Yeah. Why
You know,
not? Simply,
um,
why not? That's the thing. Why not? If you
right.
can do it, why not?
I didn't realize that I was a producer until one of my clients said, "You're a producer." I'm like, I'm just trying to work for the money that you're giving me. They're like, no, but you
Yeah.
told me that I didn't know how to do this. I was like, why didn't you know how to do that? You're making music. I thought that was the thing because that's what I
Yeah.
do,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and I,
Exactly.
to some degree, do it like that to this day, even though I'm much more aware of where those borderlines exist,
Yeah. Yeah.
in that operability. But, um, but it's, yeah, I think that, if you're paying too much attention to that, you miss the enjoyment and the fun of what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I mean all of this stuff,
All of it.
you know,
Yeah. I agree. I
but
agree.
you have to be clear that there are differences, and it shouldn't be the difference isn't what's to be feared at
Yeah.
all.
Hmm.
You don't have to even fucking like it. That's not the
Yeah.
point, right? I
Yeah.
mean, if it's something you don't like it. And if
Hmm.
there's something that you don't like and you don't want to rock with it, that's fine, right? But you have to accept that it's here and it has as much right to be here as anything else, as anything that you do like, right? I
Hmm.
saw stuff in the neighborhood today that I definitely don't like and wouldn't necessarily swing with. Um, but I would never harass or harangue that person for, you know, doing
Yeah.
their choice. It doesn't harm anybody. It's,
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I would still talk to that person. And I wouldn't
Hmm.
necessarily talk to them in a way that's quizzing them about every life choice that they make. But
It's a
I guess that's not the worst thing in the world either. But I wouldn't do that. I would
yeah.
just
Yeah.
treat them if
Yeah.
there's a conversation, because people are people and things are things. And the more you experience, the more you learn and the more
Yeah. 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 I agree.
you can be in
I agree
touch with things.
100%. Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And and just again, being able to travel, meet different people, see different things, you know what I mean? And like if they say what 10% of Americans have passports, and that explains a lot because of the mentality of Americans, but
mhm.
once you get out of this place, you know what I'm saying, and you travel and you see different parts of the world, um, you it's a true awakening because
Yes,
that's when you truly realize how much you have been programmed. You know what I mean? To think that this place it's got everything going on. It's got what I'm saying. I mean, what? I'm gonna tell you something straight up. Until I went to Haiti, that's the first time I think I've eaten a full meal and not got the itis. You
mm.
know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh
and I'm
wow,
so serious. I'm so
yeah,
serious. You know what I'm saying? Like eating a meal. Like, I don't think the meat was in it, but at the time. But like, when I'm saying the reason why I say it is because, or even when I went to Panama, I saw some fruit. Well, I saw a portobello thing. It looked like a grapefruit, but come to find out, it's the grandmother or the great grandmother of the grapefruit. You can't see that at Whole Foods. You know what I'm
that's right.
saying? It's you know what I'm saying. So it's just that life is so much more than this program that we've been programmed to be a part of, man. You know what I'm saying? Even music. You know what I'm saying? Even going back to even music, because I'm gonna tell you something, man. This little story real quick. When I was younger, this guy I was working with, I was delivering pizzas. An older white dude. He knew I'm a musician. He said, "You like music?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, 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 yeah." He said, "When you're working today, listen to this album." I said, "Okay, cool." The album was "Shake Your Booty" by Frank Zappa, right?
Oh,
And I'm listening to this, and I think Bobby Brown is on that. Flakes was on that, you
mm.
know, and I'm listening to this album, you know what I'm saying? And I was like dumbfounded. I was like, I've been listening to music my whole life, and I've never heard anything like this shit I just heard right now.
Anything from Frank Zappa is
You know what I'm
just
saying? You know, he
100.
looking up there goofy as hell, you know what I'm saying, with a looking like a Arab with a turban on. And I just realized later that the name wasn't Chic. It was Shake Your Booty. Just
Right.
the whole everything about that aspect. I'm just like, I just learned, and I always listen to all music, but like that just
And here's
added
somebody
to
such an originalist.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
The things I love about Frank Zappa, he's completely
Yeah.
an
I
originalist.
mean,
I mean, he
I was
created so
just
many
like,
things, but he the way what he would craft together,
yeah,
and
yeah, 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 yeah,
accept.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Then on top of that,
Hmm.
the way he saw this culture,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. For
and
what it is.
speak about it politically,
Exactly.
you know, what it's doing to people and how it actually works and where this is going. You know what? He actually, I'm sure you've seen it on Instagram. He was one of the people that early on called it that this place was headed for, a Christian fascist theocracy type
Yeah.
of
Hmm.
behavior,
Oh yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
know.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And I think anybody paying attention would have really seen it, but he was able to put, very specific voice to it, as part of a culture that normally, well, I wouldn't say normally, but they broadcast media would not normally put
Yeah.
that kind image saying those kind of things,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
On blast back then,
Yeah, I agree. You talking about conscious, man. Good gracious, man. That
right?
that was like that was like next level consciousness, like with a on a whole different level of music, artistry, what do you call it? Visuals, you know what I'm saying? Good gracious, man. Like
He
one of my
has
favorites, man.
much recorded works in the Library of Congress as Louis Armstrong.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And actually, to a certain degree, that was always, one of my goals in music was, it wasn't necessarily awards. Um, it was to make a lot of money. It still is. At least as much as I
you
can
know,
get, right?
yeah,
Listen, you want to work the job that you like to avoid the jobs you don't like, and you
exactly.
better chase it 100%. Don't get it twisted. But what I always thought with the thing to be at to a certain degree is being prolific and being able to create as much as you can to leave behind, because that's what we're going to end up doing, leaving it
Yeah,
behind, right?
yeah, your
I
legacy.
mean,
Yep.
listen, look who passed today.
Hmm.
Um, um, Astrid Gilberto passed
Hmm.
today.
Hmm.
You know,
I didn't know that.
um, oh yeah, the girl from Ipanema, and and she, like a lot of black women, and while she's not considered black, she's Brazilian, which you know is as African a country outside of Africa as there
Yeah,
is.
as it can be. Yeah. Even shaped the same.
And yeah, right. You
Hmm.
know, and she went through a lot and has such an incredible and prolific body of work,
Hmm.
right? And didn't get nearly half of the kudos that she should have gotten for the work that she put in and created. But that work is there, and we're
Yes.
blessed for it.
Yes.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
fortunately, she didn't get as blessed as she should have gotten for that. But she was a blessing to the rest of everybody on this planet, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really, in a way, that's what we all should be focusing on.
Hmm.
Not so much what blessings we can acquire, but what blessings we can leave behind and how much
Yeah.
of it, because this place needs it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
this place really, really needs it.
I think it's kind of interesting. Like you say that because like even because I'm in kind of I've been keeping an eye on like when we talk about Fishbone. I've been keeping an eye on their new album and just their tour, and it's real interesting because when I look at their reviews and like some of the shows, it looks like people are wanting the good music now because it's such trash out here. You know what I
Mm,
mean? And so when I'm looking at this stuff, I'm really seeing like these people that are really older people and young people, but people our age stuff. They're coming up like, God, thank God, Fishbone's here. We can see some real music. You know what I'm saying? You know what
I
I'm saying?
think that's always the case, but I
Uh-huh.
think that people, to a certain degree, I think the audience is divorced from reality, but it's
Hmm.
not entirely their fault. But I think that they are the only real solution,
Yeah.
right? I
Hmm.
think that, I think to a certain degree, we have to acknowledge that we have to acknowledge some mistakes as a nation when it comes to music,
Hmm.
and how important music is for the overall cultural behavior
Yeah.
of the United States, but on the planet, period.
Yeah.
Um, and this is where I'll start. Pearl Jam should have had a lot more support when they sued Ticketmaster.
Hmm.
Ticketmaster should have been taken down.
Hmm.
That's not just about music. It's part of the reason why people can't go to Yankee games for less than
Yeah.
$143.
Exactly.
Fucking
Damn.
promise. In one of the most still one of the most depressed parts of the United States. You can't now go to see. Used to be you could go to the Yankee game, $5, $10. You sit in the bleachers. You
Hmm.
can't get in now for less than, like, seriously, in the South Bronx. The place is still in the fucking same part of town.
Mm-hmm.
Same problems are still going on,
Mm-hmm.
right? A big reason for that is Ticketmaster, right?
Mm.
That's one. People, the country, the courts should have really gotten behind Metallica
Mm-hmm.
against Napster.
Napster. Mm-hmm.
You know, I understood where Napster was coming from, sure, but there has to be a distinction between sharing what you own personally
Mm-hmm.
and redistributing what you bought because you were able to manufacture more of it. If I bought this TV here and then I re-engineered it and found a way to clone that TV and then say to my friends, here, have a TV of your own. That people have to realize that these machines, were really not meant for consumerism,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so what Napster allowed, which Metallica didn't make this direct argument because I don't think they understood it in that language, but I understood it at the time, was that if music is only existing in this intangible thing called a computer file,
Mm-hmm.
because the entire history of the music business has always been predicated on a tangible item. Now that item is intangible, but not only is that item not tangible, anyone can reproduce infinite copies. So if somebody really thinks it's legit that they can purchase a piece of music, number one, you only purchase it for 99 cents. The public doesn't seem to understand, and I guess customers will never understand that what it costs to produce this stuff can never be justified by providing it for only 99 cents,
99 cents. Yeah.
regardless of the medium,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's just
Mm-hmm.
not mathematically feasible until the entire economy changes over, maybe back into an agrarian economy. It just is what it is. So that's number one about that. Number two, we allow computer companies to get into the music business, not music companies, right? And we have to recognize that the business of music is not the same as the business of entertainment,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a marked difference between creating music for an audience or multiple audiences and the work that goes into accessing that audience, aligning yourself with the audience, or getting that audience to align with what you're doing, right? Both sonically and philosophically, right?
Mm-hmm.
And philosophically isn't just a matter of lyrics, because the philosophy goes into the sounds and how they're mixed, how they're
Mm-hmm.
written, how they're crafted, all that, whatever.
How to
The,
present it.
fan,
Yeah.
the artists doesn't necessarily need to know all of that, because that's what we have to contend with, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what goes into it, right? That is separate from what might be experienced in a live setting and what that live setting means and how that works and stuff like that, which people in a small way, in a very small way, are willing to pay outrageous amounts of money for, right? And it is in a small way, because the majority of what exists as the music business, as far as the entertainment side of things, does not get that level of attention, does not get that level of pricing, does not get that level of access to audience, and that is causing irreparable damage to the business overall.
Yeah.
So people are saying that they want real music and stuff like that, but they don't really want to pay for that. They don't want to put their energies toward supporting those things. Just because you haven't heard of a band, just because they're not famous, doesn't mean that they don't necessarily deserve $20 at the door like anybody else,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's real talk, man. That's real.
And I mean, this is music is an expensive sport.
Hmm.
It just
Hmm.
is, and let alone the cost for strings, for electricity,
Equipment,
over
yeah, all the above.
properties.
Yeah,
You
all the
know,
above.
um, the amount of things that you have to have. I mean, singers might get away with just having a microphone, but there's a lot more musicians than singers,
Hmm.
more, and singers are musicians too. You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
and so there's things that they have to do with. Matter of fact, their instrument they have to carry with them and use all the time. I don't
All the
have to have a
time.
guitar with me everywhere I go.
Yeah.
Right? If my hands
Mhm.
hurt, I can put that guitar down. The singer hurts, he can't communicate, he can't speak to somebody.
You can't do
God
nothing.
forbid
Yeah.
he goes out there and gets into an accident, has to go to a hospital, has to explain
Yeah.
something to somebody. He doesn't have a voice. I mean,
That
that's real.
that happened to Chino from the Deftones. He had his vocal cords paralyzed. He couldn't do squat, man.
Okay. But let's take it to the next level. Let's
Uh-huh.
imagine if, God forbid, he got kidnapped in a cab,
Yeah.
right? Like in that, Red Hot Chili Peppers video, and couldn't
Hmm.
call out and just, I mean, so I'm just trying to give it some real life
Yeah, real
human
life. Yeah. True.
connection about what these things mean for people. And
Hmm.
it's thankful but unfortunate that people like Michael Jackson and others on that level
Hmm.
were the ones who went in front of cameras to express this stuff,
Yeah.
because
Hmm.
unfortunately and fortunately they took those kind of stances,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Unfortunately, the public, or at least the snarky vocal public, reacted to it in some small ways understandable about,
Hmm.
how are you, practically a billionaire who used to be black,
Hmm.
talking about the music business screwing people over,
Hmm.
right? Because again, people have not in this country been taught how to
Yeah.
actually properly discern
Yeah.
things, right? Because you could be
100%.
a billionaire and still be getting robbed.
Hmm. He's just
And,
he's just a rich, wealthy billionaire getting robbed daily.
right. But he wasn't just talking about just that,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And neither
Yep.
was Prince, who was a lot more
Yep.
succinct with what he was talking about
Hmm.
and where that, was going. But of course, with Prince, you know, he unfortunately had his own problems to deal with when it came
Hmm.
to that.
Hmm.
And that's what a lot of his, banter came from.
Hmm.
But the reality is that there's a whole bunch of people who pursue this business, right? A business where you don't exactly get hired, right? You're not
Hmm.
exactly you're an employee of.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there are some cases where that exists, but that's not really how it works. This
Hmm.
is very much an entrepreneurial endeavor, right? Um, and if people want real music, to a certain degree, they have to find it. Granted, there's a lot of it. There's a lot more now that the internet exists in the way that it does since the mid '90s. So I sympathize with the audience for a bit when it comes to that. Um, but the reality is that musicians themselves are not making enough to be able to rectify those costs for
Yeah.
them to provide
The
what the audience
game
is looking for.
the game has changed, man. The game ever
I mean, the
since
game changed a
COVID.
long time ago, but the behavior of the audience
Yeah. 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 It's
is
changed, man.
is well, I no, what I'm going to say is the behavior of the audience hasn't really changed.
Hmm.
It's just a bit worse now because
Hmm.
the game has changed. So the game has changed for musicians in the game that musicians exist in, but the audience doesn't exist in that game.
Yeah.
They exist in their own game,
Hmm.
right? And there's a large responsibility that really goes to the manufacturers themselves, to the computer companies themselves that really deal with this. But some amount of it has to go to the audience as well, because the audience does not support things that really are in the best interest of the wider public and the wider culture, like the fight against Ticketmaster, like
Mm-hmm.
fight against Napster, and how all these things and all these losses have culminated in the market that exists today, right? That make it where an event like Coachella in the middle of the desert, right? Which unfortunately I have to say, as wonderful as Coachella is as a concept, Coachella is really born. Coachella is the child of Woodstock '99.
Oh yeah,
That's what
without a
that is.
doubt, without a
You
doubt.
know,
Yep.
you're paying what, almost $1,000 to get in, and
Mm-hmm.
then when you're in there, if you can even find access to food or drink or things to keep you going, to utilize and connect to all these, amazing artists who are the only artists who are on an event like that are getting paid a certain amount. And here's the other side of that: the principals are getting that amount, but if they have support musicians and stuff like that, they're not getting paid that,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right? That's not necessarily a union gig. Not when it comes for the musicians,
Yeah.
you know, and they're not even able to imagine what it is to build that stuff out and what those guys are getting paid, even though they get paid pretty decently, somewhat. But I know that it is to have to take 2 or 3 days to build those things out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's a lot of money being spent, but then that money doesn't even take care of the things that need to be taken care of for the audience, right?
Yeah.
People got
That's just a
$35,
fraction of it.
right?
Yeah.
$15 soft drinks and stuff like that, or whatever. $8 for water, for fucking water,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the audience is paying it, but the audience won't take that same $8 and say, "Yo, I don't know who this band is down the street, but I'm looking for something new and different, something that inspires me, something that connects to me, because I'm sick of all this other shit around me and I'm having a shitty fucking Tuesday. Let me go spend this $8 on that band. Better yet, $8 ain't enough. Let me go spend $20 on that band.
Yeah.
I can spend $8 on one beer, and I can probably get 2 beers for $8. But I can give that band $20. Just me." So
Programming, man.
and I'm not saying that for myself or my projects. I'm really saying that for the whole industry overall.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I agree. It's again, it goes back to programming, man. Could you tell where they can find you? What's the easiest way to connect with you? What you got going? What's the best way to the folks? I mean, I know I'll put some stuff in the description, but yeah, go ahead and tell the folks.
Well, I guess it depends on what people want to find me for, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to reach me for the label or the studio, if you're a musician, or I guess if you're not a musician, but I guess it's got more value if you happen to be a musician or a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
Then www.worldeaternyc.com. Right? Oh, wait a second. Do I have something here I can show? Maybe not. I should have had it in my hand or something. Let's see. Is that it?
Let me see if I can.
No. All right.
You know
Don't.
what?
Yeah. Worldeaternyc.com.
Okay.
World Eater, and it's not even straight now, but there you go. Worldeaternyc.com. That's what it looks like. That's how you spell it. Worldeaternyc.com. There's no .com on the shirt though, so figure it out.
Let me see if I can. Hold on a second. You said World Eater.
Worldeaternyc.com. The products that I'm playing in at the moment don't have websites, but we're working on that. So Shrine for the Black Madonna You can find anything for that with the word shrine. Matter of fact, maybe I'll just type that into the chat for
Let's
TBM.
see. Is that it? WorldEaterNYC.com. Is that right?
That's for the studio, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm typing this in the chat for. So, and people, it's shrine for the Black Madonna. It's not shrine of the Black Madonna. That's the church.
Mm-hmm.
We're shrine for the Black Madonna. Shrine the number 4 and TBM. You can stick it in at to find out stuff, on us. There is music on Spotify, on Apple Music. Just put in shrine for the Black Madonna. We're in the middle of recording a lot of stuff. We're beyond the middle. We're pretty close to having this stuff out and ready, but I can't give you a date on it yet.
Okay.
Even though we might do some things. We might do some live streaming concerts. We have talked about that. We are playing out live right now in New York City, but we're willing to go and travel and perform anywhere, really. So it's just a matter of booking those dates. But we've
All
been
right.
focused on recording right at the
Well, you
moment.
know
So
what? I want to. I don't know if you're the right person to because we're gonna wrap it up here, but I don't. I want to have this conversation. I don't know if you're the right person or I need to find the right person, but and you can tell me now. I want to talk about how, like, some of the people that you talked about, Prince, Michael Jackson, Bob Marley, Jimi Hendrix. All these cats that get to a certain level, they getting off it. You know what I'm saying? I think that's a very people don't really talk about that much. You know what I'm saying? And I wanna talk
nobody
about
wants
that.
to be next.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
them jokers were at the top, man. You know what I'm saying? Small
right.
fry, but I wanna talk about that because people don't talk about just like just that. But I think it's an interesting topic. But maybe
Yeah,
we could talk about that.
I mean, I know what I know what the rumors are about Marley,
Yeah, I
right?
heard the rumors.
Um, for those that don't know, there is rumor that Marley was taken out by the CIA.
Hmm.
There is supposedly um, an admission by some
Yeah, I saw that
person who
on his
said
deathbed.
that he was able to get close to Marley or set up some situation
I saw that.
that caused Marley an issue in his toe and did this, and supposedly he felt bad about it. I don't know how true that is or not, or whatever, but
Hmm.
that's a story that exists about that.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
I
I
don't.
mean, well, I mean, it's like my thing is, I mean, of course, that's like the actions, but I want to talk about, the reasons why. You know what I mean? Because we're talking about even like you were talking
Well,
about Michael.
that's what's connected to the Marley thing, right?
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. What I'm saying is
Marley. So the
mhm.
story is that, and I say it as a story because
You
it's
don't know.
hard to know how much weight to put to it, or whatever, and stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
But with Marley to a certain degree was seen as a possible Jesus figure.
yeah.
The way with his popularity, with what he was putting out there conceptually, and
Mhm,
how people were responding to him.
mhm, mhm,
You know, not necessarily in like the crazed, wild people think that maybe a Prince or a Michael Jackson
mhm,
generated in their
mhm.
day. Um, at least as far as I understand. But with the seriousness that people took him with,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think what sort of conceptually what drove some of that is the fact that he in even in his music could be so directly confrontational
Yeah, yeah.
system, like with a song like War, for
Mhm,
example.
mhm.
Um, and people latched on to it. So that's the connected reason when it comes to that, right? Um, With Michael, it apparently he had so much money. Now, a lot of his money was in debt. Now, people who really understand what money means, especially in the United States, understand that if you have a lot of debt, depending on what that debt is, debt can give you control of a lot of things. And so if you go into debt, let's say off the top of the head, for those who are listening, let's say you're $100 million in debt. That means a couple of things. That number one, somebody thinks that you could be worth at least $100 million because they've allowed you that amount of debt, because that's what debt is. That is something that's acquired or allowed or created. But it also means that people have a vested interest in you being able to pay that debt, right? And so that at a certain level means that you probably have or control a lot more than $100 million because you're using that debt as leverage against something else in order to create more wealth. And so what I've heard, and I can't give this any weight one way or the other.
Yeah.
Stories. But what I've heard is that considering that Michael Jackson at one point had owned and then sold the Beatles catalog, which is but aside from the Beatles catalog, because I think some of that was debt, and we used that debt to leverage something larger, that Michael Jackson was someone that really knew how to use debt for wealth. And that's part of how he was able to own practically 50% of all the publishing of Sony. Now, people need to understand that Sony is not just a company that makes music or makes electronics, right? Sony is a large global conglomerate. And so owning 50% of anything in partnership with Sony as an individual, let alone a Black individual in the United States, who seemed to be, as he got older, connecting more and more with his U.S. African diaspora roots, right? You know, in a way that some people think is radical. I don't think it was radical at all, but you know, if you remember any of his trials, him being protected by Nation of Islam, I'm sure some people shitting their pants. It might not have meant a damn thing, but just the vision of that by some people in the United States, I'm sure made them say, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, where'd they come from?
Right. So imagine an individual who's spending some part of that money on Fruit of Islam and all that, and getting richer and richer by the hour. Because that's one of the things that publishing is able to do, especially when you control, that many songs, especially in this age of streaming. Can you imagine what money he'd be making from streams now?
Yeah.
Because one thing about the United States is that the baby boom generation has found a way to indemnify themselves continuously, economically, well beyond their ability to actually produce something new, right? And that's particularly telling in music. Rolling Stones is a perfect example, not just them, just the amount of music from the 50s, 60s, and 70s that permeate the market today. And when the internet was a lot less open, it really blocked out access for a lot of people in the modern day. Now the internet's a lot more open, but it's still happening all over again, because now It's happening like that with hip hop. Not only is hip hop in its 50th anniversary, but um, you know, hip hop from the
50.
80s and 90s getting all this light in the same sort of way. So that seemed to be some of the reason about Michael, right?
Yeah, no, see, that's what I'm saying, and see, and everything you just said is very interesting. I've heard some of it, and and you go in a little bit more detail, but I really, like I said, hopefully, maybe we need to sit down like off topic, is really talk about that because I'd love to have a real, of course, we like you say, we don't know the true facts about it all, but at least we know that there's certain realities to everything you said. I've read for, and I think besides the Bob Marley stuff, but even dealing with Michael Jackson, that's stuff that you could see he owned 50% of Sony. That's a fact,
Yeah.
So, um, I
Well, of
would I
Sony
would definitely
Publishing, of Sony Publishing. I'm trying to be specific.
publishing, yeah, specific publishing, yeah. But I will I would love, man, you come back on here, maybe we can talk about that and something, even a topic like that, man, because go with part two. But I wanted to thank you. We were just talking earlier before we talked about the Black Michael Good Times Jesus helping us get on here. We were talking about how I literally
Right.
can't remember if I met this brother. If I can't remember if I met him through MySpace or Facebook. That's how long, what I'm saying. And I know we were back in the Amon 9 days. We linked up back
I
then. And
I will nine though from back in the day.
yeah,
I definitely do
yeah,
that.
yeah, and the Afro punk and all that stuff. But yeah, man, I would love to have you back on here, man. We could maybe talk about that or something similar. But I did want to thank you very much for coming on here.
Honored,
Again,
man. Thank you for having me.
definitely, man. Again, Polka Dot Rabbit Podcast, go there.com. Check out my book. We are out of here. Like I said, hopefully we can have a part two and really get down to some more the nitty gritty of some other topics. Again, thank you very much, Jared. Please check him out, Word Eater, NewYorkCity.com, NYC.com. I like that website. You have a very nice website, by the way. But we
Thank you.
out of here. Peace and love to everybody. And I think we got a couple more episodes this week. You know what I'm saying? Stay tuned. We got some really good guests as well. And thank y'all much. Peace and love, everybody.